Pulse 95. Between local lines, notes from the Emirate.
Yes, it's all about being responsible. New, fresh set of guidelines have been issued by the UAE government and all Emirates about the new measures and rules regarding COVID-19 measures. Now, Abu Dhabi and Sharjah, they have announced new COVID-19 related rules and measures, reducing the number of people allowed at social gatherings as well as public places. So basically in Abu Dhabi has capped the capacity of commercial, economic, and tourism activities. Shopping malls to 40%, gyms, private beaches, and swimming pools to 50%, restaurants, coffee shops, hotels, public beaches, and parks to 60%, taxis 45%, buses to 75%. Now, as for the committee, it also approved closing all movie theaters and prohibiting parties and gatherings. That is, we're talking about Abu Dhabi here.
Yeah.
Now, social events, weddings, and funerals. The committee limited the number of people attending those events. 10 for marriage ceremonies and family gatherings, 20 for funerals and mourning services. The committee also recommended intensifying inspection and the monitoring of all sectors to ensure compliance with precautionary measures and also reporting violators to the Attorney General. Now, also, there are fresh guidelines from Sharjah as well.
That's right. And the Department of Suburbs and Villages Affairs here in the Emirate of Sharjah has clarified guidelines for weddings and other social occasions. And they updated the guidelines because of the spike in COVID-19 cases. So, to sum it up, social gatherings are now capped at a maximum of 20 people. Those 20 people have to maintain a distance of 4 meters between them, and the guests would be appraised of the precautionary measures before an event starts. The venue must also have adequate ventilation to minimize the chance of infection. Within these events, guests must avoid physical contact, such as handshakes or hugging one another. The use of face masks in these larger gatherings is also mandatory at all times, according to the authorities. They spoke on the number of people allowed to be seated within a table. That number is capped at 4, and sanitizing equipment should always be at hand.
Yes, another point to note is the Ministry of Health and Prevention has announced dedicating vaccination centres now only to elderly people and those with chronic diseases in order to fight the spread of COVID-19 in line with the recent spike in infections as well. So starting February 7, which was yesterday, and is going to continue for 6 weeks, that the COVID-19 centres across the nation will now only be focusing on those with chronic conditions. And another point to consider is the people of determination and people with chronic diseases, as well as senior citizens, can approach Saha and other centres without a prior appointment. People for the second dose of vaccine should stick to the appointments that they were given, the confirmed date of appointment. But those who are looking to get the first dose will now have to book an appointment and wait till their appointment date. And those are the latest precautions and all you need to know in terms of the COVID-19 restrictions here in the country. But big news here in the Emirate of Sharjah is that the social gatherings will now be capped at a maximum of 20 people, and they all have to ensure a 4-meter distance between them. And that is one thing that you should remember and consider as part of what's going on.
Certainly, and the Department of Suburbs and Villages Affairs in Sharjah has also been keen on spreading awareness among the community as well. They've carried out a vigorous COVID-19 awareness campaign to try and rein in the spread of the virus. And among the things they did was visiting homes in rural parts of the Emirate to speak to the locals, to distribute masks and sanitizers, and speak to them about the situation as well. So as long as you're following common sense, keeping your distance, wearing your mask, and keeping the number of people at gatherings low enough, you should be okay. But we've seen authorities here crack down quite strictly on violators as well. So it's important to be mindful of the various precautions and measures and safety rules And here in the Morning Majlis, whenever something new comes up, we'll give you that update.
Yes, certainly. I'll keep you posted about that. In terms of vaccine as well, 4.3 million people have been vaccinated here in the United Arab Emirates. We're fast approaching the target that we had. Now, we need to understand what the target actually stated. The target had stated that they want to inoculate 50% of the population that are in the vulnerable category.
And hopefully 100 by the end of the year.
100 by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And at the moment, with the huge corporate campaigns that were going on and people getting the first vaccinations, things appeared to be slightly they needed to tighten the rope a little bit and said,
Yeah.
okay, let's focus on the main category first. Yes, we did the mass vaccination, but the priority remains these vulnerable groups, and hence such a measure by the country, by the United Arab Emirates to start focusing on this category first and then look at others. So approximately, we're expecting by April is when we'll see the mass public rollout once again. But these are the important updates that you should know and be mindful of.
That's right. And stay tuned to the Morning Majlis. We've got more stories and updates coming up on the program. We'll continue discussing the state of the rescue operation in mountains as well. The mountaineers missing on K2. What is happening with that, and more international headlines coming up. As always, text us at 4215 with your queries, questions, or to join the conversation. We'd love to have you on. Text us at 4215.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the program. Now, last week in Myanmar, the military seized control of the country, detained its de facto leader, and declared a state of emergency. They used the election that took place in November as a pretense for this. They claimed election fraud in which many of their party members lost. And now we've been seeing tens of thousands of protesters rallying in the streets in the country, demanding an end to this military coup. They're also calling for the release of leader Aung San Suu Kyi, who's been detained alongside other elected officials during this military takeover.
Yeah, protesters, they gathered in Yangon, which is Myanmar's most populated city. They were chanting anti-military slogans and waving the red peacock flag representing Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy Party. Now, many wore shirts and carried balloons with the party's colors in the day's largest protest. Protesters also carried banners reading "Respect Our Vote," which is a reference to a landslide victory by Suu Kyi's party back in November 8th election. Now, military leaders justified their takeover, claiming without evidence that the vote was fraudulent. One demonstrator called Suu Kyi our true leader. She said she is our only hope for our democracy. If she died or something happened to her, what is our future? We really need her back. Now, prominently on display was the three-fingered salute, which is a gesture borrowed from the Hunger Games series. It's become a widespread symbol of defiance in the coup's aftermath, and passing motorists honked in support as protesters threw out the borrowed symbol during the day's largest demonstration.
Yeah, looking at the latest updates this morning in Yangon, a group of saffron-robed monks marched in the vanguard of Monday's protest with workers and students. They've been flying multicolored Buddhist flags alongside the red banners in the color of Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy. Now, when it comes to monks being involved, now this is going to raise serious question marks and really is going to send more nerves down the spines of the military leadership. A couple of signs that the demonstrators were holding said, "Release our leaders, respect our votes, reject military coup." Other signs read, "Save democracy and say no to dictatorship." And many demonstrators were wearing black. Protests swept the country yesterday and were the biggest since the Saffron Revolution that was led by Buddhist monks in 2007 that helped propel the democratic reforms that were upended by the February 1st coup. And now marchers from every corner of Yangon, please come out peacefully and join the people's meeting. That's another activist that has been pushing on social media, despite the junta attempt to ban the social media networks. But at this stage, it seems is going to be slightly worrying and concerning for the military leadership who had plans to stay there for at least a year.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also concerning for those who've been rallying as well, because in the past, the military's met rallies like these with guns, shooting student protesters and monks alike. And currently looking at the military response, we've seen dozens of arrests, telecom outages, that evoke the days of isolation under the military rule prior to the election of the democratic government that now is no longer in power. And looking at the response across the board here, in refugee camps in Bangladesh as well, where about 1 million Rohingya Muslims who fled crackdowns in Myanmar have joined the call for a restoration of civil government, even if Aung San Suu Kyi had defended the military against criticism from international observers about their plight as well. So among the people of Myanmar, it seems the call is almost uniformal for the return of the democratic government, and they are marching against the military takeover. But what remains to be seen is how the military will respond should the protesters continue to rally to the streets, and that's going to be the dicey question here.
Yeah, like so far the protests have been largely peaceful, but last evening international media has been reporting that convoys of military personnel were being deployed to the capital and the main cities, and that's just adding some more fears that this could potentially change. And we are looking at, and we will continue observing the situation in Myanmar for the time being. A lot of activists and a veteran of demonstrations since 1988, Min Ko Naing, had also posted saying that we request government staff from all departments not to attend work from today. So there is going to be a massive civil disobedience move. To what extent is the military going to crack down on this, and to what extent, should things spiral out of control, will international communities be involved? That is all still remains to be seen, because the world is still busy with the pandemic. But what's going to happen here is something that is going to be worth noting for sure for time to come. But for the time being, we shall take a bit of a break now, and we'll continue the discussions here on the Morning Majlis. And from one country to another is our focus shifting towards Latin America. Ecuador also held its elections as they're choosing their new president. All of this will be discussed right here on the Morning Majlis.
This is Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It's the Morning Majlis. It's the Morning Majlis.
Yes, looking at what's happening and updates from the Ecuadorian elections. Andres Arauz has taken the presidential votes lead. He was the former minister under the previous president, Rafael Correa, and he is a leftist economist, and he is going to he's through to the second round of Ecuador's presidential elections, according to the latest projections that are emerging from the country. He had a clear lead with 31.5% of the vote.
Yes, and voters in Ecuador have been battered by a deep recession and a pandemic that hit the country early and hard as well. And looking at the situation, left-leaning politicians have been quite popular during this difficult period. Ecuador suffers from high debt and weak oil prices, as well as policy constraint caused by the use of the American dollar as their official currency. So that makes it a lot more difficult for Ecuador's government to meet some of the promises they had made, according to analysts as well.
Yeah, what happens now is the second round of voting will take place on the 11th of April. The 36-year-old technocrat and the minister under former President Rafael Correa has been the front runner in the case. Exit polls initially suggested that the main rival, Guillermo Lasso, was through to the second round, but election officials later said he had only secured about 19.7% of the votes. Now, this is really strange because now a lot of countries had held their elections as well during the pandemic. It is slightly concerning how you can coordinate that. The United States was the country that held their election successfully. Now, it is not yet clear how many of the country's 13.1 million voters turned out for the election of both the president and the National Assembly. The fears that strict coronavirus precautions would deter people. There were long queues outside many polling stations as people had waited in socially distanced lines to cast their ballots. And economic crisis arising from the pandemic, unemployment, and the fear of political infections were some of the major factors that had provoked a little bit of a disinterest in the elections, according to their local newspapers. But there's a lot of focus on financial aid and economic growth.
And it's also quite interesting to me the way politics function in Latin America. I mean, you brought up the Correa thing as well. He's sort of going to cast a shadow over the country and indirectly rule through Andre Arauz, and we've seen this happen in other Latin American countries, particularly Bolivia as well. So their former president, Evo Morales, he had stepped down under military pressure, but now has been, according to analysts, been essentially picking candidates for his party. We've been seeing similar things happen in Argentina with former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner exerting influence over her party since returning to office as vice president as well. And same thing happens in Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. So once popular leaders step aside, their protégés take over in one way or another, and they continue communicating with the leader as well. And that's what analysts are saying is happening here in Ecuador as well.
Yep, of course, and keeping you posted about the latest updates from Haiti as well. Bit of they're going to be bracing for a little bit of unrest of a situation, reason being because the president Moise refused to step down, and it is going to they're saying the government claims it had stopped a coup amid dispute over the presidential term limit. So that's also another key area to keep an eye out and see what's going on over there. But we'll certainly keep you posted about those developments indeed. But for now, the Majlis crew will take a bit of a breather. And right after the news headlines, we'll continue the discussions here on the Morning Majlis. Up next, we're going to turn a little bit more like future talk. We'll talk smartphones because Samsung's S21 has been getting a lot of attention. An iPhone 12 mini may be discontinued. What's going on? All of this will be discussed right here on the Morning Majlis, right after the news headlines.
This is Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It's the Morning Majlis. It's the Morning Majlis.
Morning, everybody. Welcome back to the program. And let's talk about Samsung. They've been doing fairly well. They registered a 46% increase in pre-orders for their newly launched Galaxy S21 phone series in the Gulf region. This is compared to last year's S20 lineup, according to a senior company official. The premium model in the series, the S21 Ultra, attracted the most interest with more than 65% of total pre-orders, according to a senior director of Samsung Gulf Electronics Mobile Division as well.
Yes, they're saying that orders were even higher in the UAE, 56% more than the S20 series. And the consumer electronics giant actually began sales of 3 new models, the S21, the S21 Plus, and the S21 Ultra across the GCC starting yesterday. And it began taking advance orders for the devices on actually January 14th when they were launched globally. So according to latest reports, the S21 Ultra, it starts from 4,899 dirhams. The S21 Plus and the S21, they start from 3,799 dirhams and 3,199 respectively. So Samsung said it sold 45.2% of 5G phones in the UAE, which is the second largest economy in the Arab world, in 2020. And also Albora predicts this will actually increase even more. He's saying that 5G enhances the overall mobile experience. So its share will continue to grow. Samsung has democratized the technology by offering it across a different range of portfolios as well.
Yeah, look, whenever you see these smartphones being pre-booked and sold out and people making these purchases, these are signs of the good times resuming again, isn't it? Looks very, very positive. Another positive element that I was slightly distracted by was the prices of oil. They're touching $60 a barrel. I've not seen this figure for a very, very long time. Brent crude is now trading at $59.98, and it is touching that big 60 mark that everyone had expected. So it really goes to show that people are getting very optimistic about what's happening and want to make those big purchases. Looking at this phone itself, 5G really does enhance the overall mobile experience. Now, I've got a device that has 5G internet connection as well. It's very, very quick. I've got to tell you that. I do really enjoy using the 5G. To an extent, Hani Balkis from our Future Talk team, he himself claims that he sometimes switches off his Wi-Fi to use 5G because it's much faster. So that's always a bit of an added perk. And it's true, Samsung, with its wide range of devices, whether it's premium segment, whether it's the basic segment or the mid-range segment it tries to target, it has offered the 5G devices. But it looks very interesting to see how S21 is going to perform. And Samsung certainly is still out there in the market, still continuing its big marketing push.
That's right. And Samsung Electronics, as a whole, it's the world's biggest smartphone and memory chip maker as well. And it's been reporting some pretty optimistic figures on top of that. And we've been seeing that despite the pandemic, many tech companies have been booming, including Samsung itself. And this is going to happen more than ever now that we're amidst this post-vaccine euphoria where everything is on the up, and a lot of optimism for overall global demand in 2021 and beyond, despite, of course, the uncertainties that still persist, even despite the vaccine, primarily due to recurring COVID-19 waves.
They've also been cheeky as well. Similar to Apple, Samsung has also stopped shipping wired headphones and inbox chargers with the S21 series, citing sustainability reasons.
Bye.
It's the new norm.
Or financial reasons. Sure. I'm pretty sure. Come on, let's not hide it. You want people to buy those extra chargers. You want people to actually continue to invest. And yes, okay, you can reuse the older chargers, but people would want to buy the faster charger for the faster device. So, all goes down to what's happening, and it's all about making that extra cash. If Apple can make it, so can we. And that's the policy that Samsung is going to be approaching for the time being. And yes, the mobile-first world is what everyone is describing it as, saying that people started using the smartphones much more. Are you one of those who's decided to use the phones a lot more because of the pandemic? Or do you have less of a screen time as a result of the work from home nature from away
Definitely
from your
more
phone?
screen time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Who didn't?
Right, yeah.
Like everyone.
Probably me. I like being outdoors all the time, but we never know. Maybe
No, but
if
in
you
lockdown times.
Lockdown especially.
I slept more.
You
Slept
had
a lot
COVID, bro. You were
Come
on the phone.
I did. That's true. Well, but yeah, let's see what happens. Do let us know on the text lines 4215 how you got along with the during the COVID-19 world, and have you been using a lot more phone? Is your screen time a lot more than usual? Do get involved on those discussions and on the text lines 4215. Up next, we're talking.
Similarly, we're going to be talking about Apple, right?
More phones.
Yeah, more phone talk over here. We're a little bit of a future talk with the Future Majlis. So do stay tuned to the show. We'll be right back after some more musical entertainment. Stay with us. This is the Morning Majlis on Pulse 95.
Pulse 95. Between local lines. Notes from the Emirate.
Yes, notes from the Emirates and events and festivals in the Emirate of Sharjah that we're so looking forward to. especially when we're talking about photography. His Excellency Sheikh Sultan bin Ahmed Al Qasimi, chairman of Sharjah Media Council, actually inspected yesterday the final preparations for the activities of the 5th Annual Exposure International Photography Festival of Exposure 2021. It will take place starting this Wednesday, February 10th, until the 13th of February. It's a 4-day festival. It's going to take place at the Expo Center Sharjah.
Yeah, and taking place at the Expo Center Sharjah is the Exposure 2021.
That's right.
And we're gearing up for a lot of notable photographers and photojournalists attending the event, and there'll be workshops and talks as well. But what I'm really excited about is you hosting the Pulse 95 live show there.
Absolutely. It's going to be me, and it's going to be Aisha Al-Mazmi and Hani Balkhis. We're three of us. We're going to be there doing live coverage on 3 days of the 4 days of the festival. We're going to be there Wednesday and Thursday from 11 to 1, and we're going to be there on Saturday as well from 4 to 6. And we're going to interview renowned guests. We're going to interview photographers. We're going to have a full coverage. And we're also going to be talking about the workshops and focus groups that will be taking place throughout the 4 days. We see, for example, for the first day, we have about 3 festival workshops that will be taking place. One of them that will start at 12. It's called Focal Length Explained. The second one is going to be around 2. It's going to be at 2. It's called Creating Wow Factor in Landscape Photography with Ilya Locardi. And the third one, which will be at 5 p.m., it's called Photo Alchemy. So this is going to be very interesting. Of course, it's going to be paid for, so you have to register yourself for that and pay for it. The least, I believe, it's $25 for that workshop. Also, there will be focus groups as well.
Yeah.
On the first day, there will be the focus group. It's going to be titled The Creative Narrative. The second one, which will take place at 5:20, it's called The Art of Seeing. The third one, it's called Taking Your Photography to the Next Level. So it's all about enhancing your photography expertise. And you don't have to be an expert photographer to be part of this festival. You can just be an enthusiast, really, a person who likes to photograph in general. And you can take part in any of those workshops or focus groups to indulge more into that world of photography.
Yeah, and it certainly is a festival that should not be missed. I think this is the place where you learn so much more. You get inspired by listening to these workshops and also learn a lot more handy skills using your own camera. And so much to look forward to indeed. And of course, we've got to go down there, and Pulse 95 will be live. So if you want to meet up with some of these presenters and grab that selfie moment, you can do so by going.
More than 1,500 stunning images, they will be showcased at the festival. So it's going to be really exciting.
And a lot of free seminars and talks as well. Not everything is going to be paid for.
For sure.
And if you'd like to learn more about what you can do, I'm looking at the website right now. It's a packed agenda, so much to do. And the website is well designed because you could see photographs from the participants presenting those seminars and exhibitions as well. So do head over to exposure.ae. That is exposure.ae to get tickets, get a glimpse at the agenda, and plan your day out ahead, because really there's so much to do. You need to go through the booklet and agenda first.
Yep, of course. That's what you got to do. Plan your day, and it's going to be it's going to be held for 4 days. So lots of fun and entertainment to look forward to indeed. Well, stay with us here on Pulse 95. We've got lots of musical entertainment for you, and then the programming starts again with Future Talk from 2 p.m. Followed by halftime show today. And then we've also got the Afternoon Karak team, as well as Yellow Home, to take you back on your journey back to your homes. Well, For now, Morning Majlis says goodbye, and we shall be back again tomorrow morning, bright and early. And conversation to look forward to is our interview with the first female pilot of Sharjah Police. So that's happening tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So stay tuned for that conversation. It's going to be here in the studios, live on YouTube as well. And we look forward to sharing her story with you. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Morning Majlis on Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of the Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.
Pulse.